definitely have spent some time talking about the education system, and I think that can very quickly become like a never-ending conversation.
It could be a spiral for sure.
So I think we could start there. Why not?
Okay, that's a good idea. I think the main reason why we went to that specifically is because we kind of have different stories in terms of like the education system and like post-secondary education and our experiences with that. So maybe that's why it kind of piqued our interest.
Yeah, and somehow we align, even though we've experienced completely different things. So I think that's really 100%. Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing you wrote here is fostering the passion in kids. So I'm actually I'm more interested in like we've kind of talked about it already, but high school. Like, what is high school like for Jasmine?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Actually, I remember you saying you were like, you kind of had like you built a wall almost. Like you didn't want to let people in to some extent. I don't know. I'm kind of speaking for you a little bit, but
I think it was less of like not wanting to let people in and more so of like kind of performance.
Okay.
Like I mean, if the people that watch us know me, like I'm grown up in a very small town, predominantly white town. So like that had a huge impact on things. So it was a lot about fitting into my surroundings and being liked and showing up a certain way and like dressing myself up a certain way to kind of fit in. Like there's a whole story behind my hair and like straightening my hair for a long time and so like there's all kinds of different things. There's many different dynamics into that, but I would say it was less about not letting people in, but more about performing. And so then you kind of do lose a sense of self in a way. There were obviously people that were close to me that knew my, knew me, but it was still like very, which also a lot of people, it's not just me, like many people, that's kind of high school in general, is like wanting to fit in and wanting to be a certain way. So,
and you're usually trying to impress people that you don't even
100
like.
Exactly. So yeah, when you look back and you think about all the people you're trying to make sure that you looked good for and think that you were cool and think that you were funny, like it's hilarious now. But yeah, everybody goes through that. But that was more so my experience. So with the note that I wrote there, it's a kind of, I would say that I don't know if it's really possible for teachers to be able to get to know their students in like especially in high school, in such a way where they can like foster and look and nurture the passions that they can see in the students. And instead it's such a one size fits all system. And so then you may come in with certain hobbies and passions, and then by the end of it, I think that kids just end up being robots who, for me, I know that I was really good at learning, really good at following rules, really good at following a task and completing it and doing it well. And then by the end, I'm like, okay, but if you ask me to do something by myself and make it by myself, I don't know if I can do that anymore. Like I've lost my creativity. Yeah. Interesting. That's what I would say. Yeah.
I mean, what you just said reminds me of when I was I just did 1 year at Humber College, and I had actually failed the English course by 1%. And
oh my gosh.
And it's so like, I'm definitely not ashamed of this in any way. I totally believe that the situation that I was in is the reason for why I couldn't latch on to things and I didn't care about finishing assignments. And that's really all it was. It wasn't like, it was just because I didn't want to complete things. That's always kind of been the thing in school that I've always had a hard time with, because I have no connection to the thing that I'm trying to do, or
so there's no motivation to do it.
Right. And, you mentioned the one size fits all thing. And I think in high school, it was always viewed as like a little bit weird if you needed extra help on things.
Oh my gosh.
And I'd never taken those opportunities. I just kind of kept coasting through a like a situation where I was in a big classroom and not getting that extra attention. And and I found that when I was at Humber College and I failed that course, they made me retake it in with a tutor. And
oh man.
and when I did it with the tutor, I ended up getting a 99 in the course.
Wow.
And I walked away from that thinking, I love to write. I'm proud of the way that I can conduct sentences in my writing, and, like my grammar is proper, all those things. And it was, I don't really know the point I'm trying to make, but I just felt like that was the thing that worked for me the most and everybody needs to try different things in that aspect.
Oh, always.
But I would have never known that if I didn't fail the first time, which it's like frustrating to know that, because if I would have just conformed and done the thing that everybody else was doing, then I wouldn't have learned that I really work well one-on-one with people. So
also, I've never heard of any post-secondary education offering a tutor to a student.
Yeah.
Or, I've never heard of that at all. And all of my friends have struggled in classes, family members have struggled. I've never heard of that option. So to think that that's what completely gave you that second chance, and you doubled your success rate was.
And I always try to figure out
changed.
what it was exactly that made me I think it might be about showing up for that, knowing that this person
it's just
has this
them.
time allotted for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to show up for them, but
there's no one else.
Yeah. If I didn't show up to that class, nobody's going to say anything or do anything,
Exactly.
So I think that's
true.
what
there was an
is,
accountability factor.
Mm-hmm. And I think that translated into my business life too. I would always try to have really deep connections with all of the employees that I managed, because I thought, I think it was a subconscious thought that if I take care of them, they'll take care of me. But inevitably that's what happened, so.
Yeah. And I think that interpersonal skills are even obviously more important, and we use those every single day. So that kind of probably did spark a little bit of that in you, because also the reassurance that you're not dumb. You're not also some people would easily have taken that fail and been well, I'm just not good at English and I hate English and that's just not my subject. Meanwhile, you're totally capable of doing well in that course. And I don't know, I've had that experience too. Math and science was definitely not my subject. And I was constantly made to feel like it just was not my subject and I was never going to be good at it. And when I would get that one-on-one attention in elementary school and high school, I would do so much better. And once it wasn't an option anymore, they just don't have enough people for the amount of students that are needing it. Or I had too much of an ego to accept the help.
Yeah.
I just wrote it off as no, I'm just not good at math. I'm not good at science. And to this day, I'm no,
I think I ran really far away from those subjects too. As soon as high school ended, it's crazy.
Yeah, I had to take an intro to data management and a statistics class in university, and even just thinking about it gives me anxiety, because literally I was the girl that was crying in every test, just I don't know what to do. Just writing down bullshit. No idea. Just wiping tears. And I would just leave and be that went horribly. And my friends are how'd you do? I'm it was okay. It was fine. Absolutely not.
It's too funny. I think I actually loved English all throughout high school too. And I think
same.
I had a lot of great teachers in English. I'm sure there are tons of memes out now of English teachers and how they act. I've seen a few, they're reading a book and they're what do you think this means? It's the first word in the book.
It's true.
But there's something about an English teacher that they have this ability to connect with students. Maybe
there's a personality difference. Yeah, I think that, the math teachers that I had.
Subjective, I mean, there are
Yeah,
things that are objective, but it's pretty subjective, like your ideas, things like that.
it's true. It was more open ended, and I don't know. Now that I think about it, the English teachers that I had were pretty serious, and the math teachers that I had tried so hard to make it fun,
Hmm.
and they were a little bit more chill. I don't know. Maybe it just happened to be the opposite in my school, but I loved my like it was my favorite subject by far, and my teachers were cool. But I think a lot of people found them really serious.
Actually, now that
Like,
you say that, I
yeah,
had one that was very serious, and a lot of
yeah,
people that I still talk to were in that class.
like
And
loathe them to this day.
but I actually appreciated
Yeah.
that what I learned in that class. Like this guy was so hard on us more than any other class. Like
Hmm.
there were a lot of teachers that were kind of in between. Like, oh, you didn't finish your homework. Okay, make sure you do it next time. It's like
Yeah.
you're not in trouble, but you're kind of in trouble. And but this guy was like, you're gonna do double the work now because you didn't do it, right? So you're scared.
Like it was malicious. Like,
But I appreciated like the military, like aggression.
yeah.
I don't know. There's something about that.
I don't know, discipline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
discipline. Yeah, and that's where I think I learned the proper grammar rather than like ideas didn't matter to this guy. It was like make sure this period's in the right spot.
Yeah, more basic stuff.
Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah.
I just feel like in general I would say that schools, like high schools anyways, just take the safe bet and are like I would say they're pretty narrow-minded and just like pushing kids towards the most reliable paths and like
Hmm.
especially in my school it was very much like university, everyone needs to go to college, everyone needs to go to university, like you have to, otherwise you're going to do nothing in
Yeah.
life. And so I just found a lot of kids were just applying for no reason and people just felt like they weren't called to it but they had to go. And so I think, I don't know, there wasn't an individualized approach.
Do you think there's intention to that, or are they just trying to, like um, maybe there's nothing bad they're doing. It's just trying to please as much of the audience as they can. Like,
I think, yeah, I think you're right by saying that. I also think that parents have a big thing to do with it. Like, if they were openly suggesting for kids not to go to post-secondary school, I think parents would be like up in arms because they're like, my kid can go. Like, my kid's smart enough to go. It's like, okay, it has nothing to do with
true.
intelligence. What if it's just like
Yeah,
not
what
right
does
for
the
them? Or what
kid
if they
want to
don't?
do? Yeah.
What if they don't want to? What if they like? What if they're passionate in something else? So I feel like that's the safest bet is to push
And then they end up
school.
not knowing what they really want. And
Not at
I've
all.
said this to you before, but I always feel so lucky to know the things that I like, because I think there are
Yeah.
so many people that don't know what they like. And, you know, to decide to go to school for something is such a hard decision to make with the amount of money you're putting into it.
Oh my gosh.
But then you're putting that responsibility into a 17-year-old's
Mm-hmm.
mind that has no clue. Like I had no clue.
Not a clue. What did you spend when you're studying at Humber?
It was, what did I spend?
Like what sorry, what did you study in for
It,
1 year at Humber?
so I was. It's funny. One of my close friends had applied for the film
Mm-hmm.
program, and Humber had a pretty serious film program that was very hands-on, and they had a lot of other things surrounding that could get you in the industry pretty quickly. So, so I had heard that he wanted to go into it, and I was like, oh, I'm pretty interested in film. I think I'm just like, and I'm close to this guy. I think it would be nice to
Yeah.
be close to somebody I know, and
Yeah.
and we both didn't get in, so we both applied for media foundations,
Oh my
and
gosh.
that was, they were saying like if you apply for this, there's a much higher likelihood that you're going to get into film the next year.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, we both took that same path, and I actually did learn quite a lot in that program. But one of the main things I learned was that I wasn't as interested in film as I thought I was, because everybody I was hanging out with was like diehard knew
like
every move.
cinephiles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, I just felt like these people it was almost like these people deserve it more than me because my interests lie somewhere else.
Yeah, that's so like your heart was in music.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Wow, that's cool. We haven't talked about movies. We'll have to like talk about movies at some point.
Yeah. Oh, that could be a really interesting path to go down because
I think so too.
I used to be really into it, and I haven't really been.
Yeah.
I just feel like the things that come out now are not. They don't have like that same quality that they once did, or maybe it's because I've gotten older and I like to choose what I believe to be real and not. I don't know.
That's true. That's true. I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. Did you see that? Just side topic, but did you see the? I guess I don't know if Kid Cudi produced it, but it's called Intergalactic. Of course.
He made it.
He made it.
Yeah.
But
and he's in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one that
that
I can't shake from my mind because I thought that was like incredible. I think
the soundtrack.
The guy who animated it is the same as that Spider-Man animation.
He totally is because the animation is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Same style. I forget his name, but it's so good.
Yeah.
I loved that movie.
Yeah.
That little like short film.
So good. It just like hits the heartstrings every time.
I know. And the soundtrack was like magical.
Oh, so good. So good.
Yeah.
I think Ty Dolla $ign's in it.
Yes, and I love him. Everybody, my closest friends, like we were talking about like who we would be if we were a rapper one night, and I was Ty Dolla $ign because of the singing, because he's always singing, and I'm like always singing as well. Yeah. So and like the harmonize, it's just he makes me laugh. So every like ad lib, he's just like, it's so funny. Like I love him.
Have you heard "New Body" by Kanye and Nicki Minaj and Ty Dolla $ign?
Did you send that to me? Is it like the new song that he put out?
No, I don't know if it ever actually released. I think I recently heard that they were trying to get Nicki's vocals cleared so that they could publish it, but I don't know if she's not responding or what the deal is. But
yeah, she probably doesn't want it out.
I'm hoping that it's on this new album when it comes out because I heard it like 2 years ago and it is
really
so good, so good.
I think that anything Ty Dolla $ign in is just like fun.
Oh, he
really
fun.
makes it fun.
100%.
I love his vocals.
Yeah.
Well, that's hilarious.
But to backtrack a little, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was kind of there's so much more surrounding the college experience, but eventually my dad was kind of hounding me and asking me what I wanted to do. I don't know if hounding is the right word.
The golden question.
But to me, I was like I was in a place where I just didn't know what I wanted. And every time I heard that question, it was like, hit me hard. So I
still don't like that question. So like that's
Yeah. It's such a hard question to ask. Like, do you ever really know? I don't think you do, but maybe there are certain things like I would like to have kids one day and get married one day. Those are things I want. But
that's the only thing I know for sure.
Yeah.
I think everything else is like what I think one of the biggest misconceptions or myths that I realized like about a couple years ago is like, I don't know if there is a 30-year career that you do. I think it's just seasons of life that you go through, and that was like almost a big weight lifted from me or for me off of my shoulders of like, okay, I don't know if I need to pick some. Of course people do pick career paths, but I don't know if I need to pick something and stick with it for the next 30 years. I think it's just, okay, maybe for 5 years you do this, and then, for 10 years you do that, and then, maybe you switch halfway through and you go to a different place. Like, sorry, go ahead.
There's something special about like somebody who sticks with a humble job and can support themselves and their family and support the things they love to do. Also, like,
absolutely.
Like sometimes you can unload containers for 8 years and but
maybe you could do it for another 25. Like, I don't know. Yeah. But then I think that the more that you talk with people, especially the more that I would talk with older people in their 30s and their 40s, like the more I would realize, oh, nobody's picking something. They're just, like every couple years are switching it up, or like getting to the point where they're at now took, 10, 15 years. So like, I don't know, they just don't share that information with you. They just, in my opinion anyways, or maybe I wasn't listening, but like that pressure felt so strong of like, pick something, continue with it, stay with it, climb the ladder, get a pension, do all these things. And like, that was a big weight that was lifted for me.
I'm sure people aren't totally honest with themselves like all the time, but they're not doing it for malicious reasons. They're just doing it because they believe that could be their life path, maybe.
Yeah.
And like, if you get into finance, I'm sure there are a lot of like rewards off the rip that you're like, I could do this forever. And then 5 years later, you're like, could I do this forever? I don't know.
Even even like law. Think about people, like I know a couple people that are in law school, and it's like 8 years in, and then once you finally finish all of that schooling, then you're like at the bottom of the barrel. You're doing grunt work. You have no work-life balance. You're like completely burnt out for, it can be like 5-10 years of doing that before you really get into, I don't know, there's kind of like idealized, like idolized versions of those careers, and we kind of like lose sight of what the process of getting to that point really is.
Yeah. And I mean, the world needs all those jobs. So
of course.
That's something that pops into my mind quite frequently. It's like, nobody probably, I don't know if anybody loves being a banker or a lawyer, but
yeah,
I'm glad you decided to do it, because I couldn't do it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think this is where we kind of differ, is that you went to university right after high school, and I started working right after high school. Well, I guess after 1 year of college, but I don't know if I really count that year too much.
1 year, I'm just like, such a short period of time.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that I got to experience some of the things about college/university that people talk about, like the party.
I was gonna say, I feel like you got the fun stuff, and then you didn't get any of like the scary stuff, which is good, except where you failed one course. But like, that's probably scary.
Potentially. Well, it's interesting because every other course in that program was an absolute cakewalk for me, because it was like photography, logo design.
Oh my gosh.
It was everything I like to do now combined into one thing, with the like, even
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was the perfect course for me. But it's
wow.
And I do this sometimes. I'm gonna toot my own horn here, but people would praise me like in most of those classes for what I was.
I wonder why. Like,
but all that did was like fast track my. Like, I was like, okay, I need to move on then, because this is
not challenging. Why am I paying money to do this?
100%, 100%. But I got those parties. Had a girlfriend in college at the time who was like an amazing person, and like we just experienced a great year. I had so many friends.
That's so fun.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I felt like I had a lot of there were a lot of upsides to working right away that my friends didn't get to experience because they were still in school. Like, had my first car, moved into my first place at 18, and most people were
we're broke. I was broke.
But I mean, there's
like,
but I'm curious to hear that experience, because it's just two completely different worlds. And did you ever feel like, I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Like, did you ever feel like you just wanted to get going, and you were tired of that, and you just wanted to? Because that, I feel like that that response, that physical response of you wanting to leave, is like something that you should respond to. Like, you should actually answer that and go. But most people
so
still
true.
feel confined to the walls of the university, you could say.
Totally. And that was the reason why I didn't do a master's, because I was really strongly considering doing a master's, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I just want to get going. Like, I just want to go live my life again, because it is like all consuming. And when you're in that little bubble, it just feels like nothing else exists. Like, I would be in my apartment on campus. We wouldn't even go past like the outskirts of the town. We would just live in that little area. And like, I mean, I loved it. I loved every second of it, but like, yeah, I did want to just get going. 100% I did. I mean, the reason why I loved it there so much is because I just wanted to leave my house so bad. So I think if I just had another place and a job, like, it would have kind of done a similar thing, but it was also the aspect of my friends being there. But by year 2, I was like, oh man, like, how much more do we have to do? It was, and then, the pressure of like, what should I do? Should I, do a master's? Should I go to law school? My parents are like, oh, you're like, that was a program that I was in, was political science. So, and political justice. So that was like on my mind heavy. I'm like, I don't know if I can do any more of this. Like, I think I'm done. And so by the end of it, I was actually, I was completely done, and I didn't want to pursue anymore. And it was actually the middle of, it was just at the beginning of lockdown. So there was no commencement or anything, and I was literally happy about it. I'm like, I just want to leave. Like, we're done. So
wow, I forgot about that.
I know, I forget about it all the time too.
But sorry, I had something there that I was like itching to ask you. In your case, you kind of like, to pursue the career that you wanted to. It requires that kind of schooling.
Yeah, I was strongly considering either becoming a lawyer or a police officer. And so either way, I would have had to pursue more schooling. So I would have had to go to law school, and then to pursue policing, I would have had to apply to like a police program, and then go through more training and schooling there. And I was actually so scared of the training that I was like, I don't think I can do that either.
Yeah. So I think some people, they really, like, they work so well in school, and I think a lot of people that I've met in my life, they don't even want to stop going to school because it's become so much of who they are. And there's so much maybe outside of school that they don't feel prepared for, but it's kind of just something you got to jump into. Did you ever feel like you just didn't like school wasn't for you? Did you feel that way?
No, I was a school child. Okay. Like, from day one, there was never a time when I didn't like going to school. I thrived at school. Like, it was, even in university, it was difficult. Like, it was a wake up call because high school was a breeze. And then I thought, like, I was going into university with like a 90 average, and I thought, like, this will be nothing. And then I got knocked on my feet, and like, I think my high school teachers just really liked me, and I got like blew right by. And then by the time I got to university, I was like, whoa, I have to actually put some serious effort into this. And
were you like a hand raiser in your classes?
Oh my gosh, I was such a teacher's pet.
No way.
The most. The most. Like, I was doing everything.
What's the powerhouse of the cell? Mitochondria.
The mitochondria. Like, except for it wasn't science. I didn't know shit. So
oh yeah, true.
I was the biggest teacher's pet. Like, in elementary school, I was staying in at recess, helping my teacher with like photocopying, everything.
I never knew that.
I was such a. I even, like, in elementary school, I actually moved schools when I was in grade 4 because I was in like an enriched program at a different school. And
how do I not know these things?
Well, like we haven't gone down.
Really, like, when we talked in the past, it was never that deep. But
no. But yeah, I was a great student. And that's why it was kind of difficult, because by the end I was like, I want to be done with this, but I also don't know anything beyond this. and I've been just taught how to follow instructions. And now, like, when there's no more instructions, I have to make my own life. I don't know. Like, it's definitely, it's still a challenge.
Do you think a lot of university students are aware of that? Or do you think that's something that you realize that maybe a lot of people don't even give themselves the opportunity to realize?
I don't think I was the only one that realized that. I think
definitely.
I think it's becoming more of a topic today, but that's a good question. I think it was very common to not know what you were doing. So many of my friends were changing programs, dropping out, coming back. Like, it was very common. I think there were two types of people: the people that knew and just followed the instruction and, went through the next thing, and then the people that had no idea and were just like, I'm just here to have a good time. I'm good at like getting my assignments in on time, and I'll just figure it out later. Yeah. And that's what I'm noticing. A lot of the people around me are all kind of like shrugging their shoulders, like, what should we do next? No idea. Like, I think that's super common now.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like that has so
Meanwhile,
many paths we can go down, but
meanwhile, you've been in the workforce for like, I don't know, 15 years. Like,
I mean, there's something to be said about that, but it's so often that I think of like how much maybe I could have been further along in my life now if I would have committed to some kind of post-secondary something, and I really
what do you think what do you think that would have changed, like, really?
Well, I definitely don't regret anything. I learned so much in the years that I worked, and I think I grew up really fast, like having to worry about all my own bills and all those things, and like the countless weeks where I didn't know how to handle my money, and I would just I would deplete myself to like nothing and struggle to pay for gas, and I'd be like,
totally,
why did I do that? But it's something that I just had to figure out.
Yeah, why did I do that? Yeah,
I just had to figure it out, right? So in that case, I don't know, there's so many positives that I can see in university, but I just don't know if it was for me, like to sit in it, especially in lectures. Like, that's the furthest away from me learning as you can get, because I don't feel any connection unless I like.
The 3-hour night lectures literally killed me, like from 7 to 10 p.m.
And are people really learning things there? I don't.
Absolutely not. No.
So
I had people just had their headphones in. They're just like literally scrolling on Instagram. It's just for attendance. Like, nobody's there. Yeah. Maybe a handful of people.
Right.
Nobody's like mentally there.
Right.
People are sleeping.
Yeah. I think of Andrew Huberman, I think he studies psychology. I don't know if it's psychology at Stanford. I could be wrong. But he has the podcast now, and that podcast, it's almost like you need to have some kind of performative aspect to a lecture to keep people entertained. And
you do.
If you're just like reading off of a book, you have to have so much more substance. But even still, like, I know a lot of people who didn't show up to lectures, even if they did like the prompt.
Yeah. So. It depends on like there's so many different factors. And now actually, like, I taught a course this year at Georgian.
Yeah.
And I realized that very quickly of like, I'm going to have to put a lot of work into like having these kids engaged, because it's like all of a sudden the roles are switched and I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody's playing on their phone and like literally asleep. How do I need to like get some Kahoots going? I need to get some games going. I need to like get some interactive. Put some music on. Why is the floor not shaking? I realized so quickly, I'm like, damn, this is hard. You actually have to, because the work, like, the entire life balance is terrible. They're staying up late. They're eating shit. They're like going out. Their mind is not there. Like, I was immediately brought back and humbled. I'm like, oh man, I really have to work to make sure that I'm actually engaging them. Otherwise, they're not going to know anything.
That's amazing that you do that. I still don't think it has like.
I've only done it one time, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But still.
I will back in September again.
It's just like, it hasn't fully synced in yet that.
Not at all to me either. Sunk. I'm really good at English, and like grammar was my.
Oh, hey, that's fucking rude.
Oh, I'm sorry. I take it back. I will do the same thing eventually.
No, but it's 100% true. I mean, I think I have a passion for it, but I'm definitely not as good as I feel like I am, you know? Because there are people out there that are like amazing. And
me either.
Yeah.
No, it hasn't sunk in for me either. But
synced. Did I really say synced?
It's fine. Doesn't matter. Throw it in a song. Synced could be a bar.
Exactly. I think that's the solution to all of our mistakes these days.
Yeah.
Even though, what was the one? Everything changes tonight. That it was.
Let's plug your stuff really quick. Like, let's plug that.
Let's plug it.
Yeah.
How do
like
I
a shameless plug? Just I released a song. Like.
Yeah. Well, I did release a song. I think we could probably put it in our playlist.
Yeah.
If I have clearance on it.
Yeah, you're a whole artist. Like.
I think that song is actually a lot. I can feel a serious progression from that one song, because I think what is it called again? Really Good Things.
Really Good Things.
Yeah, I think for so many years I didn't make the decision to commit to learning certain things about music production, and I've always kind of believed in producing it all myself, because I don't know, it's one thing to sing and play music and then send your music off to somebody who mixes and masters and then releases it, and then there's another thing it's another thing to learn how to do those things on your own and get it released on your own. And I mean, you save a lot of money doing it that way. That's one of the reasons, but I've always been very curious about how people make a hit, for example, because
exactly that was one of my questions for you. Yeah, that was one of my questions for you, is like, have you ever had help with the production process in the beginning? But it seems like you've kind of just like slowly built the skills and like really you're self-taught.
I definitely did not. I used to talk to people about music production all the time, and it was almost like the same thing with religion. When I used to ask people a lot of questions about religion, I never really liked their answers. And it used to be the same with music production, because I think people don't really understand it. They turn on the radio and they listen to a good song. All they know is that's a good song or that's not a good song.
Not at all.
Yeah. So for them to hear like how do I process vocals properly so that it sits on top of the mix? It's like nobody really cares about that, right? But I used to always care about it because it's so hard to do. It's not something you can just log on to your computer and press one button and now your voice sits perfectly on top of a mix, because everybody's voice is different. So
it's such a different side of your brain. Like, it's so cool. I really want to know more, but I don't even know where to start.
Yeah. My mom I just released this song, right? My mom was like, how do you do it? How do you make something that sounds so catchy?
That's my question. How do you do it though?
And it's hard to answer that question because it's been 10 years of me trying to figure out how Logic works, because there are so many things you can do in Logic.
Would you say that you're just now like feeling, obviously you're gaining confidence like every day, but like, would you say that you're now in like a really good comfort zone where like, I don't know, you've gained enough skill where like, I don't know, you can kind of focus on the groove and not just like, how am I doing this? Like logistically, how am I putting this together? And now you're more focused on the actual music side of things.
That's such a good question, but it's so hard to answer because
Yeah.
I think depending on what you want to do, it can be different every time, right?
Okay.
And Charlie Puth, he's like one of the great producers on top of being one of the great musicians of our time, I think. I don't listen to a lot of his stuff, but I really respect how he conducts his music and the process. And he kind of, him along with lots of other people, have made it apparent to me that every song is going to start differently. It could start with your drums first, and it could start with your melodies first, or your chords,
Really?
or whatever. And
I thought that there was like a recipe.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, all I'm saying really is that it's a little bit dangerous to put yourself in a box of like, I'm always going to start with drums, because those drums might not inspire you every time to create the next melody. So I'd say that's where I have the least confidence, is like having that repeatable process of, okay, I want to be able to sit down and make a good song right now. It's hard to even say
The
that
pressure.
you can do that, right?
Yeah.
So instead, if I feel it, I just go for it, and I try not to make it a job, or, I think there has to be a business side to your music if you want to do anything with it. But at the same time, if you are focused on that business side of it before you start recording, you're probably going to go down a path of something that's not genuine and not honest with yourself. So many thoughts, but
do you think that there's times when like you are more, do you have to kind of prepare yourself to create in that way? Like, is there like a pre-care? Do you need to like, I don't know. I know we're both into meditation, those kind of things. Do you have to, I don't know, does it just come anytime, or do you really have to put effort into clearing your mind and preparing for it?
I've found that's helped in the past. Like,
yeah,
it definitely, I would say that I'm a pretty anxious person to begin with. So any time that I can like clear my mind is going to be better for me. Especially in a music sense. And we talked about this. I've even posted about this. I think having a clean space to start with, and like putting everything away and starting over again, can be really helpful, because you can see your life as like a clean slate a little bit. But in terms of, because there's also, I guess, like a mathematical side of it that's more, I think you were asking about this earlier, like, do I feel like I can construct something like more easily now?
Yeah. Is it less the focus of like the music is coming through, the creative side is coming through, less than like, okay,
so I don't have to worry about, I don't have to worry
Exactly.
about high end being too, like, I can, for the most part, I can find where the flaws are. And sometimes it will actually, if I don't focus on it in that moment, it will definitely slow me down in the creative process.
Yeah.
So I might actually, this is something that I've learned recently, is to just, okay, I'm going to take the time to make sure this is actually giving me the inspiration that I need to create lyrics for it, rather than just like, so for years, and I still do this because it's like a way to empty, like to just get the creative out. Like I'll just do a 4 on the floor beat. It's just like, do, and then just like
let it go from there
and see what happens. Yeah. But often it will end up being like an 8-bar loop that I can't do anything with, because I never intended for it to become a song. So
there's no room for lyrics even.
So I'll notice like very quickly if it's one of those or an actual song. And sometimes I'll like give myself a shake and be like, okay, if you really want to make something right now, that's not what you like. You can't do that, because
snap out of it.
Yeah, it's like that's the lazy way. And the real way that I think works for me now is like, okay, I found the drum beat, I found the chords, and now if I don't start writing lyrics as soon as I hear it in my head, then I might lose it. So I better capitalize right now. Yeah. So that's why I think some of my lyrics will end up being like kind of goofy, because I'm like, well, that's what it is. Like,
yeah.
And
just like improv kind of.
yeah. And this was something that I kind of wanted to touch on today, was like this idea of decision making within music, because you can either like sit on those lyrics for an entire night, or you can say, okay, this is what the lyrics are going to be, and I'm going to move on to the next thing and see where I can take this. But like every time is going to be different. It's like when we were making logos, we could have decided that we were done halfway through, because it wasn't like what we had was bad. It was just not exactly what we wanted. But it pushes the project along, and sometimes I think it can be like you might paralyze yourself by focusing on one song for too long or one logo for too long. It's like, okay, let's...
Because there's infinite options that you can do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's there's so many things about music production that I think are behind the scenes that I don't know if people really know what it takes.
Not at all.
It's like, and especially because there are guys that they'll pull the loop from somewhere, they'll sing over it, and then they'll send it to the engineer, and then it
comes back to them.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with all the options that are out there now, like Fiverr is one of them, where you can spend $50 or you can spend $300, and you probably will get a pretty quality result, because people are so talented out there and they have all these tools at their disposal. So you can pump out music constantly, but I don't know. It doesn't always feel real to me when people aren't composing the whole thing themselves, if that makes sense.
So like with AI coming into the world,
a little bit of that, but people are just so good at producing music now. There's countless amounts of people, and people's inboxes are probably filled with vocal stems that they could just put a beat over and it's perfect,
Wow.
But it's hard to do both. Like, most artists won't produce and most producers won't sing. That's probably not true. A lot of producers, they'll sing on their own stuff, but those same people,
you do kind of have to find a niche, like, in something.
And I think they're kind of scared to branch out that way. Like,
yeah,
I mean, that's just my own experience, is like, if I'm really good at production, I'm like going out on a whim to start singing on my own music and releasing it to the world. But
well, that's like the story of Kanye too, is like nobody wanted him to make anything because he was just a producer.
Yeah.
And can you imagine? Like, yeah.
Maybe we should have kept his mouth shut for a little longer.
Maybe. Maybe, but I'm good with graduation.
Yeah. I mean, that voice is iconic. Like, the things that he said, people can say whatever they want about all the bad things he said, but
I'm not going to stop listening. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
That kind of flew by.
That did fly by. That's a serious podcast right there. I feel like I talked for forever.
We definitely have to come back to music production though. Like, that was just scratching the surface. I feel like I want more info, but
yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on it that just kind of keep flying out of my brain. Maybe one thing to wrap that whole idea up is, because I noticed this when we were working on the logo. I think these things are all intertwined in some capacity.
Totally.
So, but when you work on it with another person, I put together a first draft of the logo. You gave me notes that were all like, even if you're not a designer, even if you're not a musician, you still have like a preference, and bouncing those ideas off of somebody can make a huge difference in the creative process. And that's one thing that I find that I'm missing a lot with music, is like, this is, in my mind, music is like a community, and to work on it on your own a lot of the time is not really, I don't think you're making your best work if you're doing it by yourself all the time, because you need those little like, oh, I wish there was a bell right there because,
yeah,
you know, it feels a little empty, or this feels too busy. That bell needs to go, you know?
And sometimes I feel like that comes in the moment instead of like if you send it to me,
Yep.
or if you send it to someone, they listen. It's a completely different experience than like
Yeah.
being in the studio with someone, making it with them, or like being with you as you're making a beat or something. Like
Right, because
there's
the
just
options,
some things,
right? Like you were mentioning the other day about when we were making the thumbnail, it was like, you have to see all the options for you to be able to make a decision. Sometimes you might end up with the first one that you decided on, but if you didn't see them all, you wouldn't know that was the best one. Right?
Totally.
So it's a cool thing, but the way that you can enter a space where it's like to work on things as a group is it's hard.
Something special.
Yeah, like, and
you can't replicate it.
You can't replicate it, and like the opportunities to find those people grow smaller and smaller as time goes on in your life. It feels like, to me. I don't know.
We have talked about like adult friendships and how it's hard to find them, and like that as you get further and further into your adult life, that the circle does grow smaller, and like it is difficult to find the people that you can collaborate with that way.
And it's almost about, I mean, I've thought this, or I've had this idea that I have to make something of myself for somebody to know, to want to work with me. So, you know, maybe that's what has to happen, but that's what I convince myself of, is like,
nobody can be with you for the come up. You have to like become something, and then you can have a team.
Yeah. I don't know if that's true, but it just kind of feels that way sometimes.
Totally.
Okay. I think that's an hour, peeps. So,
yeah, that's it. We got to wrap.
Yeah. Come back next time where we will talk about something way more interesting than music production.
Come back next time and we will do podcast again.
Where we will do work. Where
we will record talking.
I love that idea of like having a to-do list, and one of the things is do work.
Do work, do podcast. Yeah. I don't know what we'll talk about next week. We'll see. Yeah.
Turn off metronome.
Listen.
I had to.
Yeah, for real. You guys are getting good quality audio at this time.
We're
be grateful.
All right, y'all. Check out the playlist on Spotify. We're gonna be updating that with like whatever we talk about musically.
Yep.
I think there's only one thing on there right now, but
we're gonna keep adding to it as we chat about stuff. Maybe even like I know we want to keep adding things of like what we've been consuming. So
yeah, I was gonna say, do you think we should add things that aren't mentioned in the podcast also?
Yeah, like more than one song. Might be probably good.
Because I don't think we're referencing enough music to be able to fill that
not
playlist.
Yet. Not yet. I'd like to, but not yet.
I think we might even do some episodes just like focusing on one artist, because we dive
I really want to
some artists, and it's fun.
I would really love to do that.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Peace out, y'all.
Peace. See ya.